Here are the notes for example 3 for section 4.1. So here, once again, we're going to graph this exponential function, so 4 times 2 to the x minus 1 power minus 3, without using a calculator. And then we're going to state the domain and range of the function, the one they give us. Okay. So if we look here, we have translations. We have this -1 and -3. Now, to make this easier for us, we're actually going to graph the parent function. Now, we did this last unit before the break, when we did cube roots and we did square roots. So we're going to do a parent function. Now, the parent function is really just going to be the function without our h and k values, basically without the translations. So that's going to be this 4 times 2 to the x. That's going to be our parent function. So we're going to first graph this, so that's why I'm using blue. So everything in blue is the parent function. Then we're going to use our translations to help us graph the other function. So the first thing is we want to know the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept comes from our a value. So in this case, our a value is 4. So writing this as an ordered pair is going to be 0, 4. Next, let's talk about our asymptote. So in this case, when we do our asymptote, we're doing it of the parent function. And so since our parent function does not have a k value or a vertical translation, we go to the default, which is y equals 0. Now, don't forget, you need to make sure you have your asymptote when you do the problems tonight for homework. Okay? That is part of the graph. Now, next thing is I'm going to create an XY table. 0, 4 is going to be part of that table. So we already have 0, 4. And then we're going to also use -2 and -1. And then 1 and 2. So we're just going to use those numbers. So in this case, we're going to plug -2 in for x. Okay. So here, when we do that, basically we have 4 times 2 to the -2nd power. And when we do that, remember, the negative flips this, so we now have 1 over 2 to the 2nd power. And 2 to the 2nd makes 4. So now we have 4 times 1/4, which should just give us 1. If we plug -1 in for x, now we have 4 times 2 to the -1st. This translates into 4 times, now in this case, 1 over 2. And when we do this, we should get 2 as our answer. Now we plug 1 in, this shouldn't be too hard. We have now 2 to the 1st power, which is 2. So we just do 4 times 2 to give us 8. And then we plug 2 in for x, so 2 to the 2nd power should be 4, and then 4 times 4 gives us 16. So this is probably the only one that's going to be not on the graph. The other ones, we can do that. So we do -2, 1. Then we do -1, 2. We have 0, 4. And then we have 1 and 8. I'm not going to graph 2, 16 because it does go off the graph. Now remember, our graph, the exponential, should have a curve to it. And remember that this function does not cross, nor does it touch our asymptote, which is at 0. So now what we're going to do is we're going to think of what is our h value, what is our k value. Because what we're going to do next is we're going to take each point that we plotted and we're going to move it that many sections. I'm going to make them black so at least we know which ones we moved. Now remember, h in this case is going to be our -1, and then k is our -3. Now remember, with h, we do the opposite of what we see. So when we see x minus 1, we're actually going to go to the right one. So each point we're going to take to the right, 1 unit. And our k value is exactly as we see it. So since we have -3, that means we do go down. So we're going to go down 3. So we take each black dot that we have here, and we're going to move it to the right one, and then down 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make my point. Second dot, we do that. So we go over to the right one, down 1, 2, 3. And then you continue this with each point you have. And then last one, you go over 1, down 1, 2, 3. Now, if you notice, if we just drew this, it would cross our blue asymptote. So, because of this, what happens is, since we have a translation, a k value, so we move vertically down in this case, we actually have to move our asymptote as well. So since we moved each point down 3, we have to move our asymptote down 3 as well. So we started at y equals 0, and so we're going to go down 1, 2, 3. So now our new asymptote is at y equals -3. So now this allows our graph to not have to cross our asymptote or even touch it. So the red function that I have here is actually the graph that we have for the 4 times 2 to the x minus 1 power minus 3. Now our last thing is we're going to find domain and range. And domain and range is going to be of the red function here, or the red graph. Now really the domain for any exponential function is going to be from -infinity to +infinity, because we should always hit all of the x values. Now our range is going to change. In this case, if we look reading our graph left to right, our graph increases. Because it increases, we know that our y values get bigger. So we're going to have +infinity as part of our range. So that means we have to start at our asymptote. In this case, the asymptote of the red function is now actually at -3. And remember, whenever we do range, we use parentheses for our function or for our interval notation. So we start at -3 with parentheses, and then we go all the way to infinity. So that would be the range of our final function here.